Thanks for joining, ladies and gentlemen. Today I interviewed Oliver Manalese. Oliver started off in the corporate world like so many of us do, and one day he just realized he didn't want to do that anymore. He wanted to be an entrepreneur, have more freedom, have the ability to take some time off and do all that. So he eventually started investing in real estate and did a lot of rent-to-owns, and then he realized that he wanted to help people. He wanted to kind of become a coach and help people identify the things that are blocking them from achieving their potential. So on this episode, we talked a lot about what he does to help people get to the next level, what kind of people he works with, and there's so much more that's covered here. So I think you'll really enjoy this episode. Make sure you leave us a review wherever you're listening to it. If it's on the iPod or iTunes platform, that would be ideal if you can just leave us a 5-star review there. And as always, share this with your friends and family. Love to get the word out there. And if you guys are looking to chat about real estate, feel free to reach out. I know a couple of you have already reached out to me through the website welloff.ca and you booked a call. I love chatting with you, so I'm happy to do that anytime. Reach out and I look forward to connecting. Welcome to the Welloff Podcast, where the goal is to motivate, inspire, and share success principles. I'm here today with Oliver Manalese, who runs a leadership consultancy and helps successful entrepreneurs who feel spiritually bankrupt. That's an interesting concept, so I'm interested in finding out more about that. And so you help people build a purpose-driven lifestyle business. And the purpose of your work is getting clients from feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, and disconnected to building a life and business that's meaningful, satisfying, and that makes an impact. So Oliver, I'm not going to read through the entire thing because there's a lot for us to chat about, but welcome to the show, first of all.
Well, thank you so much for having me, George. It's a true honor. I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, the way I like to start off is by asking you a little bit about your childhood, where you grew up, and a couple things you remember from that time.
Yeah, when I was born in Toronto, and we moved to Mississauga when I was in kindergarten. So I actually moved. We lived in the city center area, like Rathburn and Mavis.
Cool.
And that's where I went to elementary school. And you know what? Actually, I just saw on the news today that Palladium in Mississauga is closed for good. They just announced due to COVID related issues. And I'm just like, man, that was my childhood.
Yeah.
That was like the fun thing to do. I grew up around the Square One area, and my family were like middle class, like lower middle class kind of area. And I was exposed to entrepreneurship, I think, at probably around grade 7, grade 8 by one of my friends. His dad, I remember, he had properties and he rented out these properties, and he had a business where he had employees. And that was kind of like the first real exposure that I had to business and even the possibility of creating an enterprise like that. And then I kind of forgot about all of that when it came to high school. We moved into the Streetsville area. So I went to St. Joseph's Secondary and Catholic school. And there I kind of forgot because it was like all new people. Everyone I grew up with went to Father Gates, which is like the whole other side of Mississauga. And so really it was just about like finding a sense of community and friendship again, and, being cool and having connections in that sense. So I think I maybe forgot about some of those aspirations. But I did, have other things that I was interested in when it comes to like performing music and being on stage and speaking. And I was in student council. I did things like that. I went to U of T in Mississauga. I know that you went there as well.
I did.
I went there for a couple of years. I majored in political science until I realized that to affect change in this world, I did not see that happening in terms of me becoming a politician and doing that. During that time, I had the very fortunate opportunity to work at a high-paying job for a major car manufacturer in the area. This is when like unions were big and the wages were inflated. And when I was in this assembly line environment where technically everyone has made it because they're making over 6 figures, they have this tight, secure job. Everybody wants to work in this type of environment. But then I realized that you spend enough time with people throughout the day doing this repetitive work, and you're like, man, this is kind of like grunt work. No disrespect, it's necessary, but it was kind of grunt work. And I realized that there were people there who were highly qualified with master's degrees, PhDs, teachers, engineers, and things like that. And yet, they're working in an assembly line. They went to school for a higher purpose, and then they're here. And I find out it's because they had the mortgage payment, then the cottage payment, and the boat payment, and they were just really kind of stuck in this rat race, as Robert Kiyosaki would put it. And so that's when I realized, I'm just like, there's no life in university that I'm seeing, and there's no life in this assembly line that, for myself personally, I don't see myself wanting to replicate that. And that's kind of when the questions started to open up, where I was just like, okay, well, there's got to be something else. There's got to be another way. And that's kind of where the possibility of entrepreneurship came back into my sights, and I started to consume and devour tons and tons of content, all these different kinds of books. Like, this is when you had to physically go to a bookstore and just like look through the real estate, the investing, the business, the philosophy, the personal growth sections. And I was just kind of like trying to nourish myself, because I wasn't really around people who could provide the types of insights and wisdom that I was looking for. But I found it in books. And that's kind of where I'd say the journey really kind of started to take off for me, in terms of just being on this path.
Mm-hmm. When you talk, you make it sound like you're really old, but you look like you're like 32 or something. Am I right, or am I off there?
So I'm 35.
Okay.
And I started, I'd say when I was 18 years old, when I started to really get into all of this. I think my first rain event, I was like 19.
Yeah.
19 or 20 years old.
That's cool. So it's interesting, because I got a political science specialist at the University of Toronto in Mississauga as well. So we have that in common. And yeah, definitely not, I didn't see myself having a career in politics, but it's interesting how we end up in these totally different places in our lives. So you tell me, I'm kind of curious about your RAIN experience. How did you end up at RAIN when you were young?
Yeah, I attended a lot of different workshops and seminars and meetup groups to try and find, different community, just tribe, right? I think that's an incredibly important aspect of any path that we are on, is to have that sense of relationship and community. And when I read Don Campbell's his book, Real Estate Investing in Canada, when I first read that book, it was the first book that seemed principled, it seemed values-based, and it also had the idea of having purpose and having meaning towards your journey. It wasn't just, get rich and get wealthy. I'm like, that part is important, but there was something that spoke to me there, and that drew me to go to what was then called Quick Start, which is now Acre, their weekend experience. And so I went there, I think it was in third year university, and I was just blown away. I'm still vibrating. I listen to U2, It's a Beautiful Day, all the time, because that used to be like the break song. And I still listen to that, and I still get vibration from just memories, just reminiscing about those moments, because that was like what really thrusted my journey forward. Mm-hmm. And that made me realize that, I need to be on this path. There's no reason to continue investing time and money and energy into university when I know I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to get into real estate. I want to be my own man, in a sense. And so after third year university, I didn't go back. And so that's kind of like I went kind of full into the path.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so after working at that job for the car manufacturer, like you mentioned, what was your path after that? Where did you end up after that? Yeah,
so I learned early on, and I'm thankful that sales is the most important asset when you want to start a business. So I got into different roles in sales and inbound sales in the recruiting industry. So this was just kind of like entry level, just straight out of the gate. They just take you on and you learn the ropes. Mm-hmm. And I was in that industry for about, I think, from 2006 to 2009. So it was about 3 years. And I went from a major billion-dollar corporate company, just kind of like at the bottom and moving my way up. And then working with a friend of mine who actually opened up his own recruiting business. And he was just on his own. He's an accountant. He's like, Oliver, I'm a numbers guy. And you're best friends with my younger brother. And I know you're in recruiting and you want to get into real estate. This is a small business. Maybe you could learn the ropes of like wearing multiple hats, right? In this small, tiny organization. So I helped him in that small little company in an office probably half this size. And we took it from losing tens of thousands of dollars a month, growing it to, we had several employees by the end of it, by the time I left and went off on my my own rent-to-own investment business. And that's kind of where I went full-time into what I had been envisioning from the moment that I was 18. So I was 23 when I did my first rent-to-own deals.
Cool. Interesting. Okay. So 23 years old, you went full-time into rent-to-owns?
Yeah.
And how were you able to make a living through rent-to-owns? Were you like teaching people how to do it, or were you just, what was the process there?
No. I first I learned about that strategy, and I thought, okay, this is cool because you can create the situation where you feel like you're helping people. You're helping people come up from a place of, all right, I have terrible credit, some bad life circumstances, bruised situation, to help them become homeowners. We're having investors who can create a nice return on investment. This is before when people were putting 0% down, 5% down. So we were able to, do a lot when it came to that type of opportunity. But what was really powerful about the strategy is I had a mentor at the time, and he really guided me. And you had him on your show, I think, Mark, right? Mark Loeffler.
Oh, yeah. He's in this office.
Yeah.
He might be here now.
Okay, yeah. No, I definitely want to give credit to him because he saw me at 23 years old, and he's just like, hey, man, you have a real knack at finding these deals. And let me guide you, let me mentor you. And so we partnered up for the first little bit, and we just kind of got started. I know within the first month or two, we did like 9 deals, and they all, it just kind of like, it just created this breakthrough for me, because there's this idea of, if you have a good deal, the investors will come. Mm-hmm. If you have the right opportunity, the money is attracted to that. And I thought about that, and I heard about that symbolically. I could understand it intellectually. And I think for most of us, we can get things intellectually. Oh yeah, I get that. I understand that. But then when you actually go through it and you experience it and you see it, that's when you really get the insight. Mm-hmm. Like, it really lands at a visceral level. So I actually got to see it. I'm like, oh man, like, we created something where, there's something that we took from nothing, from just our head. We put people together, and here we are. Like, there's a whole bunch of people who are succeeding and winning and moving their lives and their businesses forward. And that was an exciting time for us.
Cool. So that was about 12 years ago. Am I right?
2009.
Okay, so 11 years ago, more or less.
Yeah.
That's cool. I think rent-to-own was a relatively newer concept in Canada at that time. I don't know if too many people knew about it, but that's interesting. So
that was an uphill battle for all of us at that time, for sure.
Okay, so you were doing, let's say, you said 9 deals in the first month that you committed to doing rent-to-owns. How long did you do that for?
I was in the business for 3 years. We were starting to do all these different deals, and we found these different opportunities to work with. We kind of just kept transitioning and kept pivoting to find the right thing, because I had always been a fan of Tim Ferriss and the 4-Hour Workweek and lifestyle design. And that's part of why the work that I do now is driven on, purpose and having a lifestyle business, because I don't want to be working 60, 80 hours a week. But that's what it was turning into. The rent-to-own business was turning into that. And it got to this point where it was always about, okay, we need to do bigger deals. We need to do more deals. We need to get bigger investors. We got to get better investors. And it just kept becoming that, as opposed to this initial, this joy and this inspiration of, we're creating something. Like, this is like, there's a breakthrough. And now it turned into kind of like this predictable path, in a sense. Like, I could definitely see where my life would be 10 years from now, to just keep going the way that I was going. And, I looked around and was like, man, technically I did it, but this is not cool. Like, this is not as cool as I thought it was going to be. And for a long time, I sat with that by myself, and I never really shared that experience with anybody, that I felt like something was missing. I just kind of kept going, and I kept burying it, and I kept trying to reinvigorate the excitement with something new to kind of uplift me. But then it would only last for like a couple of weeks, and I'd be right back to, well, what the hell am I doing this for? Like, what's the point? Like, it's robbing me of my freaking soul to be doing it. And it's not that there's anything wrong with it. It was just an inner whisper that's like, you're meant to be doing something else. And I think a lot of us go through that experience. I mean, the clients that I work with, they're successful entrepreneurs. So they've made it technically, and everyone around them is like, bravo, like you're doing exceptionally well. But then they walk around by themselves in their own head. They're like, well, why does it not feel good? Why do I have all the symbols of success and accomplishment? I have the portfolio, I have the net worth, I have the business, I have all that. But how come I feel like I'm not fulfilled? There's no meaning. And that's kind of where I was at. And so that's kind of where I had to really do some deep questioning to kind of get a handle on what was going on deep down.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so is that how that led to you kind of becoming your own entrepreneur with the lifestyle business that we kind of talked about? Is that what led to that, or was there something in between that you had to do to figure out what you wanted out of life?
Yeah, well, you asked about like the teaching, right? I never thought that I would be a teacher, but I think it was 2011 in the summer. I, for some reason, like at a young age, I thought I was like, I don't know, I was maybe like I almost had the naivety, right? Of, hey, I was able to start my own business, rent my own business, and free myself from 9 to 5. I can help you. And I made this offer on Facebook, and the memory still shows up every year. And I had a couple people message me who were just like, hey, I would love to learn from you. And I had a couple people I set up calls with, and one of them really, it landed well because we had a prior relationship through Rain. And I was just like, yeah, I like this guy. Like we were the same age. We kind of got each other. And I'm like, man, let me teach you. I'll mentor you. And, if you create results, then that's what my payment will be. Will be like, I will have a partial ownership in those investments. And, but other than that, I'll teach you for free.
Yeah.
And so that really, it blew my mind to see that within, he was stuck for a year, not able to produce any deals. And then within 3 weeks or 4 weeks of being with me, just once a week, he was able to do his first deal. And then within a month after that, he did another deal. And then within a year after that, we were having lunch, and I'm just like, man, your goal just passed. You said you're going to quit your banking job. You're going to go full time into your real estate business. Like, what the hell happened to that? And I really hit him hard. Like, I really kind of unofficially coached him at that point because we weren't doing any official calls anymore. But the next day he sent me a text. He's like, Oliver, I sent my notice in.
Oh, wow.
And he had just got a raise, a new promotion. Like he got so much more money, which was meaningful at that time, of course, when you're in a 9 to 5 job. And he was like in trepidation before doing it. He's just like, Oliver, I just sent my resignation. And a couple of weeks later, he sends me a card. He's like, Oliver, like I have you to thank for helping me escape the rat race. Mm-hmm. Like, oh my God. And that kind of that always stuck with me. That kind of always had that. It planted a seed for me. So when I was doing that deep questioning, I had like some major. I'm not even sure. Like, what can we talk about on the podcast?
There's nothing you can't talk about.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, the simplest way to put it is, I had a transformational experience that I did by myself. And it was a deep questioning, and I did it in complete solitude. And the intention was to get clarity. And the clarity that I got was that like what I had created was not me. It was not me anymore. I used to have, I built up this entire sense of self around my business. And I think that's a challenge that we all have is we build careers, we build businesses, and that's who we are. So when the business is not doing well, we're not well. When the business is doing great, we're like gods, right? We're everything. We know it all. And I realized that is not me. And within a few days of that, I decided to let it all go. My business partner at the time didn't want to take over the rent-to-own business. And so we just dismantled the whole thing within about a week. And at first it was like, what a great release that was for me. But if anyone has ever experienced, and I think in the past couple of months, we've probably experienced this, but it was like an existential crisis because everything I knew myself to be from 18 years old to 26 years old, I completely vaporized it. Mm-hmm. It just erased. It just vanished. And so that was a lot to be with because now it's like I can do anything, but I don't like, there's no inner compass. There's nothing inside of me that knows exactly what to do next. So that was an identity crisis. It's like, who am I now? Who do I want to become now? I could flip properties. I can use the real estate license that I was using for rent to own. I could start another business. I can get into coaching. And so like, I kind of had this weird, dark night of the soul is what it's called. And I didn't know that at the time, but it was a dark night of the soul because I was kind of like walking around aimlessly, like just burning away whatever money and savings and credit that I had left, because I'm just like, I'm not going to go and make money, because I know that if I try and busy myself, and that's the thing, that I work with a lot of my clients who are high performing entrepreneurs, and they're so busy, their busyness is actually a clever strategy to avoid themselves. They are so busy, they can't even look at the questions of, hey, what am I really capable of? Like, what do I really want to do? And so I knew I didn't want to busy myself. I wanted to stay in that question, that possibility of, okay, well, who am I really? Like, where do I want to be for real? And that's kind of when things really began to kind of turn around, because now it was not what I thought would look good from the outside in, that would make a lot of money, or what everybody else was doing. I was just like, well, what's true for me? And that's been like, that was a huge sacrifice to do that.
Cool. Well, you kind of touched on it. I'm a little bit curious about what you do with your clients today. What is it that you help them? Like, what do you do for them? What do you cover? How do you help?
That's a big question. So when I work with my clients, typically the people that I work with, they've already done well. So they've already proven themselves in the arena of taking action, of doing. And really where they're missing is being. They don't have that sense of being fulfilled, of being accomplished, or having meaning. And so, for instance, I have one client who, he created this incredible organization, and he grew it to this size where he feels redundant. He feels unnecessary. He's like, what the hell is the point of me being here? Like, I don't even make an impact. I don't even make a difference in my own company. So what am I doing? I felt I'm a burden to my business. And it was just this interesting existential moment for him, where it's just like, well, what's next for me? And really what the work was, he didn't own his gift. He would really kind of water down his vision, because anything that came out of his mouth as a possibility of what they could create as an organization, it was kind of shot down, because most people want predictability. They want security. They want safety. They want things to happen the way it should happen. But what he's seeing is just like, it's something much more, beyond what we could even imagine. And so he would kind of like tone it down or keep it to himself. He was kind of ashamed of sharing really what he sees for his company. And the work that we did together was really about having him unlock what his true potential is, unlock what his pure power is, so that when he can own that the fact that, all right, I'm a visionary, I'm a leader, and it's not like in some arrogant way, but it's like, hey, this is part of what got this business to where it's at. And if you just, there's this great book, and it's called, and the title says it well. It's like, what got you here won't get you there. And that's the simplest way to put it. We have all these techniques and strategies that got us to where we are. But if we want to get to the thing that's next, you can't just keep doing what got you here, because what got you here has produced problems as well as success. But those problems cannot be broken through. You cannot move past those problems using what got you here. You have to step outside of it. You have to go through a process of reinvention, of transformation. So that's really the part, the work that I do is the reinvention, it's the performance, it's the lifestyle.
So just to kind of recap what you're saying, you work with a lot of people that have successful businesses typically. So these are people that are accomplished and they're making good money and maybe own some real estate or whatever else, but they're just feeling like there isn't necessarily a purpose in their life. They don't really know what it is that that'll bring joy into their lives aside from their work, and their identity is kind of associated with the work that they're completing. So you help them identify kind of that disconnection between who they are and what they do for work. Am I right?
Yeah, I think that's a part of it, and I think it's an important part of it. The part that really shocks them sometimes is realizing that, there's, based on the trajectory of where they're at, there's things that they're going to accomplish, and it's not going to be a surprise to anybody. And that's why it's kind of boring for them. So I'm like, okay, what's your vision? Let's say I had one client. I'm like, what's your vision? We spent like 10 minutes. And she's just like, winters in Costa Rica, and writing a book and coaching people on real estate investing and helping them become wealthy. And what was so funny is that she just had no energy. And I'm like, can I just share with you what my experience is of your vision? Mm-hmm. You're just flat. Mm-hmm. It's just very flat. She's like, yeah, you're right. Why is it flat? And I said, is it possible that this vision that you have is flat? It's two-dimensional because you're already headed there. There's nothing that's going to make you feel more alive, than possibility. This is predictable. When you get there, the community around you, your team, they're going to be like, of course she got there. Like, of course she's writing the book and she's coaching all these people to create wealth and she has this great podcast and she lives in Costa Rica for the summer. It's like, of course. But the real aspect that's missing is a lot of times it's this relationship with themselves, because they're so busy. There's a lack of relationship with themselves. Like, how do you really treat yourself? How do you experience yourself? Can you acknowledge your accomplishments? Can you celebrate yourself? What are you like when it comes to the relationships around you? Are you so busy in the doing you can't even be with your partner, be with your kids, be with your family? Are you so caught up with the game of getting over there that you're completely bankrupt when it comes to being here now? And I think it's funny because when, I had a client just the other day and I said, well, based on what we were talking about last year, you're already there. You just 4X'd your business and you thought it was just a possibility before. And here you are now. Imagine 1 year from now, where are you going to be? He's like, oh my gosh, I'm totally going to hit 7 figures. I'm like, okay, well, what does the 7-figure version of you do each day? What are you not doing now that version of you who has more responsibility, more people counting on them, producing more results, what is he doing that you're not doing? And he's just like, oh man, well-being. I'm not practicing well-being. And actually, well-being is the number one practice. It's the number one fundamental in the work that I do, which is there are practices day to day that provide a sense of aliveness and vigor and energy and resourcefulness so that no matter what's in front of us, we can show up to it fully. Mm-hmm. And it was so simple. It was literally like, man, taking baths, getting massages every week, making sure that he's getting the stress out of his body. He needs to be as relaxed and supple as possible and strong as possible, because when you are throwing yourself into the midst of chaos, that's what possibility is, when you're stepping into the unknown, you've never been here before. So he went from him and his employee. Now he has a team of 7 people. He's never been here before. He has an ops manager. He has a project manager. He's like, oh my gosh, he's stepping into being a freaking leader. So a year from now, he knows that fundamentally, if he doesn't have this base right, then he can't be there for his aging parents. He can't be there for his growing kids who, Jim Shields, Jim Shields? Mm-hmm. He famously says, you only have 18 summers with your kids.
True.
You only get 18 summers. And you have these aging kids. And he's just like, man, if I'm not relaxed, then everything that puts me on edge, I'm going to be close to red line, and I'm just going to step into my job and I'm going to red line immediately. So our work is really to decompress as much as possible, relax as much as possible. So he's present and he's fully there when it matters the most.
Yeah. So do you provide any advice on that, or is that something that he has to just figure out on his own, how to decompress, how to not be overwhelmed by work and all that?
It's funny because it's not really advice. It's you already know. George, you know what you need to feel more alive, to feel more energized. I don't need to tell you that. My job as a coach is to reflect back at you exactly who you are. George, this is what I see. This is what I'm hearing from you. I'm just reflecting it back. And then for yourself, you start to notice, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah. All right. So what do you think is missing? What's the gap? And you produce what's coming up next. I don't know any better. My job as a profession is really just to be a noticer, to be an observer of human beings at the level of being. Like, who are you being? And if I can show you exactly as yourself exactly as you are, as opposed to what you think, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. It's like, no, exactly as you are right now, which is honest, which is real. When you can come from here, then you know where you are relative to there. And so you can understand, I had one of my clients who's doing all this work and burning herself out. She has a property management company. She has coaching clients. She has a portfolio. She's doing so many different things. And when we broke it down, really, she's not sleeping enough. Like, we know, right? Like, if you're not getting enough sleep, you don't have the bandwidth to handle the responsibilities, to grow as a human being, as a professional, as an entrepreneur. It's about expanding your ability to be responsible. And it comes with a lot of complexity. So if you can't take ownership for one area of your life, how dare you freaking think that you can take ownership over these other larger areas of your life where you're like, here's a huge endeavor. Here's a new project that we've never done before, but you can't even handle your sleep. You can't even sit and meditate for 5 minutes. You can't even go and hang out with your pet, with your dog and play with them for 5 minutes. Like, how dare you think that? So it's like we do these tiny, at that level, it's really these nuanced, tiny little shifts that produce the results. And so that's part of the reason why when it comes to this work, it's like have clients go from 60 hours to 10, 15 hours a week, but to producing multiples of what they ever used to produce.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, that stuff like that always interests me, like reducing your hours, leveraging more, and just being able to increase your productivity that way.
Yeah.
It's cool. So what does your ideal client look like?
So they've made it, but they realize this wasn't it. It's not as cool as I thought it was going to be. They have all the symbols. They've accumulated the symbols, the money in the account, the number of properties, the head count of their organization, and yet that still doesn't. It leaves them feeling like something is missing, which is they don't experience themselves as I'm powerful, like I'm a resource, I'm a leader. They don't experience themselves like that. So I work with people who they've reached that level of success and they're just searching for, okay, well, who I was appropriate to the path that I've been on, but I've created all the success. Where I want to go next, I can't use who I was. I can't be who I was. I need to discover who I want to become to get to that next place. And oftentimes that next place has to do with how do I, it goes from a conversation. Typically, this is what I find. It's about deals and money, and surviving as a business in the beginning. And that is always going to be the case. We are in a real world. That's going to be a benchmark of how well you are doing. But then eventually the conversation becomes around people. How do I impact people? How do I shift this person's life? What is my role in my community? What is my role in my family? Like, what legacy do I want to lead? So it usually turns into really owning their leadership and finding ways in which to express that leadership. Oftentimes it's through something that they create, like using their words, using their message, using their vision, and seeing, just like, part of my job is to see what's possible for somebody that they can't even see themselves. Most of us, we already have that gift. We could hang out with a buddy and be like, hey man, I can totally see your potential. Like, I can't believe you can't see it. But then the same thing goes for us. We can't even see our own potential. Like, I'm lucky enough, I have mentors and I have coaches. Like, in an hour, I'm going to be meeting with a longtime mentor, and he's seen what's possible for me before I did. He believed in me more than I even knew how to believe in myself. And that's usually where these leaders get to. They get to a place where part of their job has to do with, I see this person's potential and what they're capable of, and they can't. But there's something that I can do, something that I can say, something I can share that could help unlock that for them. And nothing would give me more joy than to accomplish that, whether that's within their own team or that's with their audience or that's through the work that they do. Usually that's how it turns. That's what it turns out to be for them.
Awesome. Yeah, well, you touched on a lot of really good stuff in here. I wanted to go over the next section, which is the random 5. So I'm going to ask you 5 random questions, and you're going to tell me the first thing that comes to mind. And every episode's different. So, yeah, they're totally random. I don't create these questions. So sometimes they're a little bit difficult. The first one is, what's the most overrated product out on the market? And don't say an iPhone.
The most overrated product. I wouldn't say product, but I would say information. We overestimate the power of knowing. We think that to accomplish something, we need to know more. Oh, I need to know. I need to know how. But if it only came down to what you know, you'd be rich and have 6-pack abs, and you would have the life that you want. If all you have to do is Google it and read a book, you would get there. So I think we overestimate information and knowledge, which really comes down to we overestimate our head.
Yeah.
Our mind, because it's really through action. It's really turning insight into action and embodying those insights. That's where the transformation happens.
There you go. Spoken like a true coach. All right. Number 2, if you had unlimited funds to build a house that you would live in for the rest of your life, what would the finished house look like?
I have this vision in my head of I wake up early in the morning and I drink a ton of water and the place is dark and I have like 500 milliliters, a liter of water, and then I meditate and the place is still dark. And then when the sun starts coming up as I'm meditating, it's filled with wood and stone and huge windows and mountain, and there's trees. We're immersed in nature, and I have a beautiful chef's kitchen with a stainless steel La Pavoni espresso machine there waiting for me after my meditation. And so it would be kind of like a warm, rustic, welcoming, inviting place where you can entertain, where you can feel cozy, where you can feel like it's sacred and it's a sanctuary where you walk in and you're like, oh yeah, I'm taking my damn shoes off when I come inside of here. So I always have that vision in my head of that type of home.
How often do you think about that vision?
I go in and out. Sometimes I'll have a visualization every morning for like weeks, months, and then I'll go periods without it. But like it's I think that initial visualization is to be really, really deep and intentional, so that when you can like walk into it when you close your eyes and you're already there. So that's kind of like once you get that in place, as soon as you close your eyes, you can just be there and feel the vibration of it. Because there's this really powerful book called A Happy Pocket Full of Money by David Gicandi. And what's amazing is he goes into the now, like all there is now. So anything that you envision for yourself, it's not over there. It's here and now. It's just you haven't received it or experienced it. So the visualization is gratitude and appreciation for what's already yours. And it's yet to be received or experienced. It's already yours because everything that you've accomplished, it was once in your head. It was already on its way. As soon as you can see the possibility of it, it's already on its way. So it's a matter of you acting on it. So yeah, it takes like 5 minutes.
Cool. That's awesome. I like what you said there. I definitely agree with that. And actually, it's cool the way you put it. Like everything you've already accomplished was once just an idea in your head. And that goes for everything that you're thinking about in the future. It's already put into existence. So number 3, what animal best represents your personality?
Lion.
Okay. You knew right away.
There's a lion painting that a friend of mine, Thomas Zatrak, created, which is like this lion whose head is on fire and its tail is on fire. And I'm a Leo as well. So I just always associated the symbol of it. But it's not because it's ferocious, but it's like it has it under control. It's it's a king of the jungle for a reason. And so I like that. I also like the symbolism of a skull as well. So it's not really a spirit animal, so to speak. But I used to always carry bracelets or wear bracelets with the symbol of a skull, which some people think might be morbid, but really it's memento mori, which is remember you're going to die. Marcus Aurelius, he really goes into, the Stoic philosopher, he goes into the importance of understanding your mortality. The Buddhists really meditate on their own mortality, and it just helps you realize all there is now. This is really all we get, and tomorrow's not guaranteed.
Cool. Okay. Number 4, what piece of technology brings you the most joy?
So, 2 interesting ones. So the first one is I just got a Kindle 3 weeks ago. I used to always be like physical books, and I'm just like, you know what? Like, I think let me try a Kindle because I like the capacity to highlight and notes and then just export that and put that into my knowledge management system, which just seems like smart because I have all these books with indexes and underlines and highlights and notes, and I have to actually go back and reread them to see them again or open the book again. And it's like an archaeological dig. I'd love to just have access to it immediately. And then the second one is there's a software called Notion, and it's like this no code way of managing knowledge, which is, they call it the second brain, to have all of your knowledge in there, your projects, your tasks, and creating it in a way that's custom just for you in whatever way you want to make it. And that's kind of like the double-edged sword of it. It's like it could be anything, so that kind of is confronting because you have to really invent how you want to use the tool. But I'm very, very fascinated with those right now.
Awesome. Okay. And number 5, which is one that I always ask, what success principle do you live by?
Make a significant impact on as many people as possible while staying true to yourself.
Cool. That's a good one. Can't argue with that.
Don't want to succeed and then lose yourself along the way.
For sure. I'm sure a lot of people do that, but that's good advice. Okay, so to finish things off, do you want to share how people could reach you and what services you offer?
Yeah, if people want to connect with me, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. Part of the process of getting in touch with me and discussing the opportunity of working together, they can have a conversation with me. So callwitholiver.com. And that'll send you directly to my calendar, and you can set up a time. That's totally a gift and complimentary. And also, I have a masterclass, and it's called The Shortest Path to Alignment for Purpose-Driven Entrepreneurs. And so that is olivermanalese.com/masterclass. So that's complimentary. That's free as well. Just embedded inside of it is this tool that I created, which takes sometimes 30 to 60 seconds each day or each week, depending on how you want to use it. But it's called the Instant Alignment Activator. That's inside of that whole webinar experience, is to teach you the power of this tool and why it's so important. And so olivermanalese.com/masterclass for that.
Awesome. Oliver, thank you for sharing.
Thank you, man.
It was nice. And I wish you all the best with your business and with your life and your purpose and everything else. And I look forward to chatting again soon.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks once again for listening to another episode of the Well Off Podcast. Just want to remind you that if you do appreciate the content, all I ask is that you comment, maybe like it if you can on the platform that you're listening to it on, and finally share it with friends and family. I'd love to get the message out there, and it would mean a lot if you can share it. And finally, I just wanted to offer you, as a valued listener, a free copy to the Roadmap to Real Estate Investing, which is a document that I've put together which helps you identify what strategy would best suit your needs at this current time. You go over certain things that are included in this document step by step, and it'll hopefully provide you with some clarity. So have a look. You can go to www.welloff.ca/guide to download your free copy.